For the uninitiated, you've been so many things. I mean, we've worked together on a few projects before, and I know how you work, I know what you do, but for the uninitiated, a very quick rundown, 3 bullet points. You began your career in banking, then that evolved into IT consulting, and I think you've been doing that ever since. And it's been, 30, 40 years since the late 80s?
31 years yesterday.
Wow, congratulations. Congratulations. So, yeah, I guess today we're going to talk about those 31 years that have passed and the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Without a lot of detail, of course. My first kind of question that I wanted to find out is what inspired this career change from banking to IT consulting?
Well, it happened sort of by chance, really, because I was working in banking as a head of a banking department specializing in particular financial instruments when Big Bang happened in the city in the late 80s. And so my department, the bank was using big IBM mainframe computers, and these mainframe computers and the banking software didn't handle these new financial instruments. And so at the time, we bought the very first IBM PCs, which didn't even have a hard drive. And in those days, it was Lotus 123 because Microsoft Excel didn't really exist. Windows didn't exist. And so because of my age, and I was keen and ambitious, I literally learned how to program in Lotus 123, and I wrote risk management software using Lotus 123, and I got a reputation as a banker who understood technology. And then eventually I was still running my banking department, but then I got headhunted by another bank who wanted to do the same sort of thing, but they wanted me as a liaison officer, coordinator, whatever you want to call it, to be able to sort of translate between the techies and the bankers.
Consulting.
Exactly, but being employed by the bank. So that's how the progression, it wasn't a deliberate choice on my behalf. It was an accidental evolutionary change, just purely being in that place at that time. And then I went into work I left the banking finance market industry sort of to work for McDonnell Douglas, the aircraft manufacturer. Yeah. And the aircraft manufacturer also had a banking division selling banking software. But they employed me. Yep.
How?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so so I then ended up working as a consultant and a project manager. And they put me through the Project Management Institute training to become a professional project manager, as well as a consultant. So I could go in and in my consulting role, manage projects as well.
Yeah.
Which and it just evolved
hand in hand.
Exactly. And then, as I said, in 1993, I said through various other things, I tried setting up my own business.
Okay.
Failed miserably.
Really? Why?
Because I didn't know how to sell. I could do the work, but I didn't know how to sell my business. So I went back into industry, got myself into a role in sales, worked my way up in sales, learned the trade, went through sales training, and eventually went back in 1993, set up my own business.
Okay.
Now knowing how to sell.
All right.
Now knowing how to sell, and it's gone from there. So, as I said, over the last 31 years, I've had clients in 19 time zones, in 17 countries. I've done work from small one-man bands through to large multi-corporates like Shell Oil and HSBC and Novartis. So, and you know me through my role over the last 10, 15 years, predominantly focusing on process management and helping companies look for ERP systems. And in the last 5-6 years, I've project managed the implementation of an ERP system, the complex one for a client, but also I've also been working with ERP companies.
Oh, that's cool.
Helping them evolve their project management skills in how they manage the projects. So I've seen it from both sides.
I see. Now, talking about starting up your own IT consultancy, I didn't even know that you had to do it twice. What was it like back then? Early 90s, email was a thing.
Basically hardly existed.
How did you win business? How did you sustain your clients? Because we're talking about big projects. It's not like, it can take a year, more than a year, to switch from one ERP system to another.
In those days, ERP didn't really exist for the small company. It was for the big corporates. So back in the early 90s, it was a lot of companies who were using Sage Line 50, Act, Goldmine, Maximizer. So CRM was coming in at that time. So it was companies going from paper to using technology in spreadsheet or application format. So I got a lot. My first few clients came from people that I'd worked with in industry and sort of talking to them and then passing business to me. But also, for example, I got the Shell contract from conversing via CompuServe.
Does that ring a bell?
Well, that was before sort of email and forums. It was like sort of messaging, public messaging. But I got it through CompuServe in those days. And so I've still got one of my very first USB sticks here when USB first came around, and my very first USB stick was 256K.
Okay, wow.
But
that's less than a floppy
disk. Yep. So exactly in those days, this is just the sad thing in technology. Okay, these new applications are wonderful. Absolutely wonderful what they can do. Most people don't use hundreds of what these new things can do.
Of course.
A prime example, Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word, people write a letter.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's what the vast majority of people do with it. Now, in the old days, Word came on 5 floppy disks.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah. It's now, was it 100 meg? It used to fit. You used to be able to put it on less than 1 meg. So everything's got very big, and in the old days, code used to be very tight. Nowadays, because storage is cheap, code is not effective and efficient anymore.
Tell me a little bit about this evolution, though, from early, or like let's say mid to late 80s, early 90s. You begin your journey as a business owner. You have your own ship now.
Yep.
And now, like going into early 2000s, and now we're in 2024. Is it harder now to start, or is it easier to start but harder to sustain?
Well, it depends on what market you're in, really.
No, I mean, IT consulting.
Yeah, exactly. Because the trouble with in the old days with consulting, for example, Google did not exist.
True.
Yeah. Mobile phones just existed. Yeah. So we're going back to that sort of level of technology. So when people were looking for solutions for their business, they didn't just go onto Google and go, what are the best ERP systems? What are the best CRM systems?
Yeah.
They spoke through chambers of commerce, their contacts, etc. So a lot of it was meeting people, talking face to face, getting your word out there. And so the market nowadays, if somebody wants to become an IT consultant, you've got to have a niche and have a reputation in that niche market. Because the trouble now is, and I'm seeing it myself, is that in the old days, people would come to me and say, we think we need an ERP system. Can you help us find one? What is now happening in the market is we've researched ERP, we've read all the articles, we've gone onto Google and all these other search engines, and we have shortlisted these applications. What do you think? Yep. So in the old days where you might get a contract 10, 15, 20 days going into a company, helping them out, looking through their processes, etc., people now feel more empowered to do a lot of that themselves.
Yeah.
And now what they're looking at using a lot of consultants for is affirmation of their decision, not helping them make the decision.
But here's the thing. I still think that a consultant, especially in the IT world, even with all of this knowledge, it kind of helps the consultant that there's so much white noise.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you still get to not just affirm if it's right to affirm, but you also get to lead that business owner
Absolutely.
To a logical conclusion.
This is where the consulting market in itself is changing, because as you're well aware, that there are consultants and there are consultants. So there are some consultants that might know software, may have arrangements with software, and will go down the pure software route. Those people will be in trouble. There are those consultants that have business experience and systems experience, and they can, as you quite rightly say, talk to a business owner and say, these applications are very good and these can help your business. And if we look at your processes, you could evolve these processes with these systems, etc. And therefore you're talking at a true consulting level, not as a system advisor, shall we call them.
But it's such an interesting combination of skills. You have to be able to, let's say you have tech experience and process experience.
Yep.
Like, you know how code works and you know how business works. But if you don't know how to pace that client and sell certain concepts and why we need to do 1, 2, 3, then you fall. If you have sales experience, i.e. professional bullshitter, but you lack code, maybe you know processes a little bit. You will not have the same connection with the other side, because you might be able to get in the door and get your paycheck from the company that hired you. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the crux of it, you're going to struggle with the vendor, with the software vendor.
Well, this is what's happening in the marketplace, because go back 15, 20 years ago, there were a lot
early 2000s.
Early 2000s, there were a lot of independent consultant people out there.
Still are.
In those days. Nowadays, there are less independent people and there are more smaller consulting companies. Now, what I'm seeing, because I talk to a lot of these companies in my different roles, is that you didn't, in the old days, you used to have people like myself that had a broad spectrum of knowledge. What you're now finding is that companies are using perhaps the smaller, big consulting companies who have specialists. So they'll talk to their warehouse specialist, they'll talk to their sales specialist, they'll talk to their account specialist, and there'll be a team of consultants going in to help, which for the larger SME is fine. When you're talking some of the smaller SMEs that say 15 to 30 people turning over 3 to 10 million type thing, they can't afford a team of consultants to come in at £1,000, £1,500 a day, whatever people are charging on that basis. And there is this sort of gap now, and this is why I think a lot of these smaller SMEs are trying to do a lot of the work themselves, because they don't want to spend the money. And a lot of them, to be fair, have had their fingers burnt. And I've picked up the pieces of a couple of projects in the last few years where a consultant has gone in, advised them, because that's the system that the consultant knew.
That's a big gamble, by the way, for people that are looking at or watching this. We're talking about systems that cost upward of $100,000.
Yep. And the other sad thing, and I'm seeing this from I've seen it from the systems house side, is that, as you quite correctly say, an ERP, a proper ERP system, you won't get any change out of £100,000 as a project. But the IT companies are trying to get in the door. They call it land and expand. They try to get in the door by selling a £30,000 to £50,000 solution, get the person in, and then, oh, by the way, you need this as well, you need this as well, you need this as well. And they get suckered into spending £100,000, £150,000. And that's what's happening to a lot of small companies that have decided not to use a consultant. Because, as you know, I said, when I go in, I ask awkward questions of the IT companies on that. I'm not afraid to do so, because I've seen what they say. That's my job, to protect the client. But when they don't, because most business owners, they are very good at running their business. They don't buy software. They don't see what goes on in the system. So
sometimes they don't even see the value.
No, absolutely. And also they don't understand the turmoil that will come during the ERP implementation process.
Absolutely. Oh boy. Oh boy. I mean, but that's why, I mean, we've worked together on one of these projects, and that's why for small to medium sized business, the project we worked on, you created like a 110-page tender document that we send out to these vendors, basically. But I had dealt with them directly, and it's all very like, yeah, man, chill. Yeah, we can do this, we can do that. Let me show you a demo. But it's a completely different conversation when you're like, hi, here is a tender document. This is the deadline. Submit your proposal. Goodbye. It really like, whoa, okay, all right. I mean, usually they try to play it cool. Yeah. Fine. Give me the tender document. Inside of them, they've lost a battle.
Yeah.
Inside of them, they've definitely lost a battle, because typically they're used to IT, like in-house IT managers or business owners doing their own research. And if you're not of that IT world, so to speak, you can be easily manipulated.
The trouble is, and it's I'm not being sort of argumentative with business owners, but most business owners are sold systems. They don't buy systems.
Yeah, I should put that on my tombstone.
Yeah. So and that's the thing. If you were buying a house or a car, you go out there, you check it out, you go around it, you test drive it, you do all these things. Whereas when it comes to systems, the IT company are driving the car and going, "Oh, isn't this nice? Isn't this comfortable?"
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's very true. And the worst thing about software is that a car or a shoe or a vacuum cleaner, you can see it. You can feel it. You can research the specs. You don't need a salesperson unless you haven't done that research. You go into the shop floor and sell or be sold. With
prime example,
this is different.
A prime example, there's a system out there, and I won't mention any names. There's a system out there that is claiming itself to be a modular ERP system. They've got a beautiful website.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
I was asked to go in and sort of help this customer, and we had the salesperson. They'd already spoken to the salesperson. They'd had demos. They were just about to sign. They wanted my affirmation, and I said to the client, "Okay, what have you got from this IT company to guarantee what you want?" "Oh, we've spoken to them." "Well, was it recorded?" "No." "Okay." So I started going in. They looked at the website. There's beautiful pictures of warehouses and stuff like that. And I went to the IT company.
Smiley people with iPads.
Absolutely. And I said, "By the way, you've got these pictures of the warehouse, but I've gone through your dates, your information, and I can't find anything about warehouse management." "Oh, we don't have it."
So why do you have a picture of a warehouse?
Exactly. "Oh, it's coming."
Oh man, don't even start me on future releases. Yeah,
and
it's going to be here in 6 months.
Yeah, and the customer, the very intelligent, very sound business people, had just been suckered in by the glossy and the spiel and the rest of it, and I hadn't even thought to ask. Oh, and they had this warehouse where they sell They had, I think, 15,000 different pieces they sell and distribute. They needed warehouse management.
Yet here you are, almost about to sign on the dotted line for a 100K project, which can make or break your business. And in fact, it's such a tumultuous process to go through that of switch. It's almost like having a open heart and brain surgery while running a marathon. Like at the same time. So to put things in perspective, it's crazy. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on your personal leadership journey, because I've seen that leadership in action from many different perspectives in terms of like what you do and how you interact. But give me like one leadership lesson that you can give to somebody who's maybe 24, 25 today, and they are kind of like thinking going into consulting. What is that one leadership lesson that these people need to try and get under their belts?
The biggest lesson that I've learned has come from age, and there are things that I would not have dared say in my 20s and perhaps even early 30s to a managing director, to a client, whereas now I have the confidence to turn around and say what I think is right on the basis that I can substantiate what I say, and have the confidence to say something not because you think not because you think it's going to make you sound good. You say things because it's the right thing to say. And if that right thing to say is you do not need my services, then you turn around to the customer and say, you do not need my services, I'm going to be too expensive for you, whatever, and say it, and you will get respect for that, and you will get other business later on. You may not get that piece of business, but honesty and integrity is the single biggest part of consulting, and not being afraid to lose business, look stupid, or say what you think is going to impress the other person. Just do what is right.
That's a fantastic lesson. I can reflect on that from my own journey as a solo IT consultant. Now we have an agency and we have payroll and hundreds of projects and all of that. And I admit that that's also a very key part to the success of consultant is you have to blow some tough punches sometimes because you care about that business. You need to substantiate it with some logic, especially when it comes and I think this works remarkably well in your favor because you're a banker and you know numbers. The project has to make financial sense, almost like right off the bat. I get that some salespeople or like consultants with 50% sales strength and 25 IT, 25 PM, like that. That's their specs as a consultant. They will say, "Dude, get a loan. Like you need this." But at the same time, it has to make financial sense.
Also, the other factor that I was recently involved in a project, that one of the factors that people often forget is change management and the company themselves. Because I was recently involved in the company that had just bought an ERP solution. Buying the ERP solution was definitely the right thing to do for the benefit of the company. However, the IT company should not have sold the IT system because the company itself was so disorganized and so unprofessional, they could not cope with the discipline required to implement an ERP system. And that is part of the role. You've got to, a good consultant should look at the complete picture, not just the software, not just sometimes the finances. You've got to look at, can this company manage the process? Can they culturally adapt to it? And all the rest of it, because sometimes the best system in the world will fail because this company can't cope with the change.
That's true, and there's a very interesting thing that I think it was probably you who taught me this phrase, or like threw it out, and I'm like, okay, I'll make a note of that. I'll use that. The phrase goes something like this. People ask, okay, Alex, what's the best CRM? Like, what is it? Salesforce? Is it Sugar CRM? Is it, I don't know. What is the best CRM? And I think it was you who said the best CRM is the one that is being used. So it's the one that is being adapted. I mean, and in my journey, I've seen multi-million-pound businesses work from Excel as a CRM. So who are we really to argue with that logic? Like, look, I'm using this technically piece of crap software, but the sales are there, the operations are standing and thriving. So Excel it is then.
There's very few bad pieces of software, especially in reality, nowadays. Because if they're bad software, they would have gone out of business. So what actually happens is it's software there is software that is misused, and there's software that's perhaps badly implemented. But functionally, if you take, for example, ERP systems we've been talking about, all the ERP systems fundamentally do the same thing.
Of course.
They are
finance,
accounts, goods in,
sales.
goods out, manufacturing, distribution, whatever it may be. They all do fundamentally the same thing. So the only thing that differentiates them are the people that implement it and support it, perhaps the flexibility of it, and the way it looks.
They are all the same, but I also feel like there's an underlying sense that a lot of business is the same too.
Oh, absolutely. I've done
just because you sell toilets versus you sell bagels. It's the same supply chain dynamics.
I did a talk for the Institute of Directors a number of years ago, and I was standing in front of all these people, very high-powered executives earning an awful lot more than I was, and I turned around to them and said, you all do the same thing. You have a product or a service, you sell it, you implement it, and you support it.
Exactly.
And then you have to account for it.
How do they react?
There was just this stunned silence.
What do you mean I do the same thing as the next guy?
Yeah, because as I said, whether you're selling tables or toilets or oil, whatever, you have a service or product. You've got to find a buyer, sell your product or service, fulfill that product or service, and support that product or service.
Now, speaking about support, and I would say kind of like the future of this industry that we're in, because I want to call it an industry. When I was an aspiring consultant, maybe 7-8 years ago, close to a decade, I asked you, because I was thinking about, making the leap of going from, working for the man, but now I was thinking of jumping into consulting, and I was worried about the future then.
Understandable.
But not just my future personally, but the future. Okay, maybe it stemmed from that, but I was worried about the future of the thing that I was doing.
Yep.
IT. So I asked you, and this has stuck with me like nothing. I asked you, Nigel, where is this going? And you gave me this brilliant example that immediately cleared things out in my mind, that consulting is going nowhere. In fact, it's going to become even more and more and more. And that was 2018, so a long time ago. So the example was of like kids, mainly boys and their fathers, tinkering with cars back in the 50s and the 60s. There was no such thing as, especially if you're a father and son sort of duo, that you will take the car and get the oil changed somewhere, right? At the petrol station or the service station. You would do it yourself. You would change the spark plugs yourself. You would clean the car. You would do all sorts of maintenance. You would tinker. And then you said, okay, Al, this is 2018. Do you see where this culture has gone? People tinker a lot less with these cars, because these cars have become much more advanced, much more technologically savvy machines. They're basically laptops. And the kicker was that it's exactly the same thing with IT. It's only going to get more complicated tech-wise. And here we are in 2024, but since 2022, AI is here. And that is, even for a lot of consultants, a black box.
Yep.
That's even more advanced. So
AI has got incredible potential, but at the moment it is completely understood because people don't know where to apply it on that. And also I'm already seeing it's having unexpected impacts on business on that. So for example, and also I personally believe that it's diluting human intelligence. On that is a prime example. In fact, I've got a few examples. It's from literally experience over the last eight weeks. So this is recent experience. I said I was working with an ERP company. They wanted to generate more leads for their business. Understandable. In the old days, you'd go to shows, you'd go through the business directories, essentially you'd pick up the telephone and you'd hammer out. Now what they've got is an automated chatbot with search filters and go into LinkedIn and all the rest of it, and it scans for messages where somebody's posted, "Oh, I'm having trouble with my accounts," and it automatically sends them an email via chatbot and all the rest of it. And what they've now got is loads and loads of leads because it's responded to, and now they haven't got a sales force that's capable of supporting all those leads.
Has your opinion changed from that bit of advice that you've given me 10 years ago, looking at AI, looking at all of these changes? Has that vision of father-son tinkering,
the vision is absolutely spot, because I was taught to change the brakes and change the spark plugs and everything else in my car, and my father did that. I haven't touched my car except for fill up the fuel and the water and things like that in years. And it's the same thing with computers. And what is happening now is that a lot of systems you cannot touch. So the question is, where does the consultant sit in this equation? And I think what it's going to become is the big industries have the money and the finance, and they've got these teams of very, very clever people that are doing all this clever work for them. That's always been the case. It's how ERP evolved, and it's slowly come down the line. You've now got the SME market, where you've got these small companies that they've heard of AI, they want to embrace it, they don't necessarily know how to embrace it. On that, they are talking to perhaps ERP companies, because I know the ERP companies are looking at integrating AI within their systems on that. So, for example, you'll be able to ask your ERP system, okay, looking at past performance, what is the trend for this product expected to be in the next few months, next 6 years, or whatever it may be? AI will be able to do some incredible things on that. However, what people are forgetting is the fundamentals, is you've still got to capture the data. You've still got to do the transaction. So AI will answer the questions and provide you with advice and things like that. But at the same time, the companies are going to need consultants to advise, to direct them in perhaps even slowing them down. Whereas in the old days, a consultant would help them
try to speed them up.
And I think now we're at a point where perhaps sometimes the consultants need to put the brakes on people's ambitions, not full stop, but just say, AI.
But do the basics right.
Get the basics right. Well, I'm seeing this with the ERP systems. There's ERP systems that I know of that are planning and developing some really clever AI functionality within their systems. But at the same time, you can't generate a simple report or write a letter from the ERP system. So what's happening is that a lot of companies that are jumping on the bandwagon and saying, we've got AI, you can do this in your sales, you can do this in your product, your management, the decision making and all the rest of it, which is totally correct and is great, but you're forgetting the grassroots. The poor person that's sitting in sales receivable and needs to do a simple transaction and send a letter to chase something. If you can't do that, what use is AI?
True. Do you feel like consultants in their consultant sales role, especially in those early days of a project where you're kind of like gauging the client, do you feel like we could be replaced by an agent, or is the human to human, at least even through Zoom or something, is that not going away anytime soon?
Okay, because of COVID, everybody's using remote now. COVID was the fundamental driving force behind that. Okay, I use Skype and in those days before Zoom, but I would probably say 80% of my interactions with clients were direct. Nowadays, I would say 80-85% of my interactions are now via video message.
I actually remember you traveled a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Back when we were working on that project, you were going France, Scotland. It was.
I actually did that 6 weeks ago. I literally did London, Cornwall, Scotland, So I still like to do that. I still like to physically meet people and talk to them, because you get a mutual understanding and respect, which is difficult to achieve via a video call. So from that perspective, but we were talking about just now where is it going, and the projects and things like that, and it's a tough one, because what's happening is I did well, a good example. I went onto AI to test it out, and I said, "Oh yeah, what are the key benefits of this ERP system against this ERP system?" I thought I'd just ask it, because that's the sort of question that a business owner would ask.
Yes.
And the two systems I knew well, and AI came back with so much misinformation. It was staggering. Some of the things were blatantly wrong, and they're blatantly wrong because with most of AI at this time is that AI is scanning the internet, is scanning the world for comments and things like that, and pulling them together and assimilating them. So if you've got one system where a lot of people are saying this, and this, whether it be right or wrong, and I know companies that deliberately go onto these sites and post their own comments to boost up this volume, then AI will assume that that's what more people are thinking, therefore it must be correct.
The funniest thing is that clients are starting to do this.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Clients are giving us project briefs.
Yep.
And like I had one a few weeks ago where the client is giving me a project brief, and they keep mentioning the word API. Like, I know what an API is.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah.
But looking at the client through the Zoom call, like the mannerisms versus that piece of paper that they've given me, I started to ask them questions like, okay, you keep mentioning that you want your system to have an API. Why do you want it to have an API? What do you want to achieve from the API? It was uncomfortable because she had to, at the end, crack and admit that she used ChatGPT.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen this same
happening
things.
So often that the research that people make is not, it's getting a little bit lazier.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's diluting human intelligence. That's what I said before, because as we said, that I'm seeing the role of the consultant. In the old days, we would go in and advise based upon actual experience of systems and our knowledge and talking. Now people are going into ChatGPT or whatever it may be and getting results, and then just
because they're not experts, they can't see the truth.
Exactly. And then they call on the consultant to go, I'm going to buy this. Am I correct? Yeah.
Well, no.
And you turn around and go, well, why haven't you considered this application? And it's because it didn't come up on the list from ChatGPT.
I feel like because like back in the early days, like Google 2010, 2000, even 20, if a business owner needed to do some research, they would go on Google. They would call up their business friends. And they would try to like create this spider's web of connections, logical connections. What are you using? What are you using? Oh, that system is bad. Great. I'll probably stay away from it. But you had this like human and maybe search engine interaction. Now with things like Perplexity, you almost feel like that's it. I've got my answer. That's
more and more I'm seeing IT companies using ChatGPT to write information, write their scoping documents even.
Okay, tell me about that, because that sounds to me like an actual win. Because if an expert is in control of AI, that can save you time, because that means that your scoping document can be written in hours instead of weeks.
Oh, absolutely. There are wins and losses and all these types of things. So, for example, the win, as you quite correctly say, is yes, it's going to be much quicker. It comes out beautifully formatted, spell checked, all the rest of it on that basis. The problem that I'm directly seeing is that one, it tends to be generic and not geared for that specific company, that specific client. It's more of a generic thing. And the other one is the people reading it or sending it don't really understand what's been said because they don't need to be qualified anymore because they're using ChatGPT. Give me a scoping paragraph on how to produce sort of CIS for accounting processes for the construction industry. And ChatGPT will come up with a beautiful thing. Now, the person who's sending that off, which will normally be the salesperson, to be fair, won't truly understand what's been said. Oh, it must be correct because it's come from ChatGPT. It goes into a scoping document, and that is what's happening. And the same thing's happening, in fact, in the recruitment industry. I've got a few clients in the recruitment industry, and they're using ChatGPT and AI to interrogate CVs, cross-reference them, score them, and all the rest of it, without anybody physically going, I've just got a gut feel something's not right here.
About this, yeah. Talking about the future, what's the legacy that you would like? I mean, because you're hitting great numbers in terms of being active as a business, TPS consulting, that is. What do you want to leave for your clients and maybe as a legacy for the whole world as a company? I know this is like such a big...
I'm a realist. I will be long forgotten in years to come and things like that.
I can give you my answer.
At my age, I said I'm going to be retiring in the not too distant future. I've got clients and people that I worked with or worked for as a consultant 20, 30 years ago, and they still talk to me. And they're from Shell and people like that. And I haven't done work with these people for many, many years. And I'd like to think that I gained a respect that if somebody turns around to them and says, oh, when you were looking at in running your business and like that, who did you talk to help your business? And I'd like them to go, we spoke to Nigel at TPS and he gave us great advice and we followed it and it did work well for our business. And if I can just do that, I will have succeeded.
I'll give you my answer to this question because I ask myself this question often. And to me, this is almost like the North Star. There's two parts to it for me. First part is the team, like the internal operations of the agency. The legacy here being, I want to give young people a shot. Because in this day and age when, especially in the UK, the rents have skyrocketed in the recent 3-4 years, if it was difficult to find a place to live on your own in 2012, now it's impossible to even rent. And forget about buying. That is long gone. So I want to give young people a chance because there are some diamonds in the rough in terms of how clever, sharp, switched on the youth is. Of course, there is a big chunk of them that is not gonna follow this IT path, but ultimately there's a huge amount of people who are not getting a shot. The second part, at least for me, in terms of legacy when it comes to clients, I don't think I'll be the next Elon. I don't think I'm that clever, but you know what? The one thing that gives me satisfaction is to know that the systems that we implement, the systems that you implement too, we help that person in accounts go from hating to come to their work because the system is a piece of shite to coming to work and everything's quicker. Like I can find the data that I need. I don't have to talk to 3 different people from 3 different departments in order to get a freaking report. And that is 8 hours, at least 8 hours of your day. That is 30% of your life.
I've still got clients that I designed and wrote CRM systems for back in the 90s who are still using my software.
Now that's the legacy. That changing people's lives for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly. And I said they're now at a point where they're retiring.
But it's the next generation who's taking over. It's the next generation,
or they're selling their business. Some of them people are just selling their business and just still passing off their client base and shutting down their companies. But the fact that I've kept some clients for 27, 28 years means I can't have done something too wrong.
Now, Nigel, I'm conscious of your time, and that was it in terms of my questions. As it is customary with these interviews, do you have any questions for me?
I think that the main question is, as I said, we were sort of slightly different generations and things like that. How do you feel that social media is impacting business? Is it beneficial? Is it detrimental? Is it just an evolution of marketing, so we say? It's an interesting question that I find, because for some of my clients, it's a distraction, and some people have just said this has been revolutionary for my business.
Mm-hmm. Look, I think it varies a little bit from industry to industry. But having said that, let's look at some prime examples of people doing social media. Coca-Cola. There is no need for that company to advertise, ever. But yet, you see them on every football pitch, on every F1 race. You see them sponsoring cups, like here in Cyprus, our Premier League, Cyprus First Division, and then there's the cup. It's called the Coca-Cola Cup. So technically, if we want to have a blank statement, if Coke is doing it, you should be doing it at whatever capacity that you can. On that capacity point, I would say there is a saying in Greek that as you eat, you start to want to eat more. As you eat, that's how you get hungrier, basically. So if you start, it's free real estate. It can go wrong, but you have to be a little bit dumb for it to go wrong. If you're just showing examples of your work consistently, you're going to do well. If you want to dominate, and this ambition comes into this a lot, I feel. Depending on the ambition of the CEO, if he wants to dominate and crush his market, absolutely be top dog, vicious ambition, then that means that you have to post every hour. You have to dominate it because it's free. You have to really push the narrative that, you know what? This is free real estate. This is much more important than our website because we can show our work. We can do interviews without, you have to become this thought leader in the space. So some people are not that ambitious, and I get it. And there's a place for them. There's more than enough projects and money and clients in the world. Everybody will have a slice. But if you want to take the whole damn pie and some, then social media is a very mighty tool. And especially now with AI, I have a friend, Josh Houston, who is trying to revolutionize marketing agencies via AI. His argument, and he's quite on a warpath with this argument, is that marketing agencies of the past can be erased as a species with AI done right. Because doing client profile analysis and brand identities and all of that sort of stuff, if you feed AI enough data, examples of who you are, who are your clients, what are your products, who are your main competitors, what is your freaking color scheme, all of these things, it can produce the same and even better results than resting on their laurels marketing agency with 30 years of experience.
Oh, yeah.
So honestly, with that sort of level of ease, because back in the day was, but I have to produce content. Yes, but now it's easier than ever to do that. So the excuses are less and less and less. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But honestly, the people who want to do it and can't decide when to start doing social, even on one post a month. If you're stuck in that, should I do it? Should I not do it? Now, there couldn't be a better time. Yes, it's very satiated. Very, very, very satiated. We are getting in discussions with a client who runs a very successful podcast. Millions of listeners around the world, super successful. And I was speaking to him a couple of days ago, and he's very successful. And he told me this thing, like, Al, the people who are doing great right now with podcasts and social, they are people who post 6-7 times a day. Like, they are flooding the market in order to be at the top. So it depends on how successful you want to be and how much you want to survive. We've seen this before where people get eaten up.
Yep.
Like, smaller businesses get sucked into bigger businesses. It kind of depends how ambitious you are.
I think another factor also is the exclusivity of your product or service. Because I see that with a couple of my clients that are high value, low volume. And they are deliberately avoiding the social media hype because they want to keep exclusivity. They want an air of mystery, shall we call it, of, oh, I've heard about this product. Where can I find out about it? I can't find it. I want to go and find out about it. Because the value of their products, like Rolls-Royce, you don't see Rolls-Royce advertising on TV. You do see Toyota.
Well, it depends on the market. So, for instance, in Cyprus, Bentley advertises on TV.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Bentley advertises on TV because Cyprus is full of rich Cypriots, rich Brits, expats, rich Russians, Ukrainians.
Because I'm here I live here, as you know, I live here in the Pyrenees in France, and down here you don't even get a tractor advertised.
So it depends on the market, I guess. Yeah. But I understand also, like, the people who want this air of this aura of mystery surrounding their services, great. But I'm thinking, what if I did the same thing as they did, but with like a ridiculously huge social media like train accompanying it? I wonder how many clients I would get at the same time. Because maybe I'm ambitious. Maybe I want this thing to be the best thing in the world. There are companies like TSMC, like the chip manufacturer in Korea. They are one of a kind. You can't really compete. They don't advertise because they're alone. But if there is competition, I feel like somebody who's trying to keep this aura of mystery, it's great if you are
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous when there's competition. Like if there's competition involved, then there's only one way out of that, and that is domination. Everything else is competition, actually. You either dominate or you're competing. I'm the kind of guy that wants to dominate. It's difficult. It has a price. I don't have proper weekends. I pay the price. But the chances of me surviving are higher than consultants in the space who take weekends off, don't do YouTube consistently and a lot and great. I'm not saying that I do.
I agree with it. I've been in business 31 years and I'm now just starting to slow down. But as you say, I've been available 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Client phones me up on a Sunday morning with a question, I will always answer it and things like that. And that's what's kept me going for 31 years. Okay, I am now starting to slow down because I've got that sort of client base and that reputation. But even so, my clients know they can always call me at any time of the day or night because of the time zones, of course, my client base anyway, it happens. But now I try not to work 6-7 days a week every week.
After what, 50 years in service, 60 years?
Well, exactly.
The least I can say is that you've earned it. Like, with capital letters, earned it. So, Nigel, I hope I have answered your question
absolutely.
About social. That's it. I really, really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for taking this opportunity. I've learned so much from you, not just from the 1 hour, but from all the hours that we've spent together at work. It's a massive privilege to have you on. That's basically it. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we can do part 2
Yeah,
of this maybe next year to
yeah.
see what new thing AI is trying to replace us.
Oh, it'll be interesting to see.
New ways.
Absolutely. But no, I wish you every success in your business, because I'm slowing down and you're accelerating. That's how it should be.
Yeah, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants like yourselves. There's definitely a lot of times in my journey starting up when I remembered a lot of the advice that you've given me. It might have been off the cuff. It might have been not even a direct piece of advice, but just watching you handle certain situations, I took mental notes.
That's how I learned. I had good mentors for me in the past, and I have learned from them, and that's what it should be. That is the role of good people. You help, you advise, you steer, sometimes indirectly. They do the same thing.
And here we are. Well, that's it. Nigel, thank you so much for your time.
All the best.
Hope to catch up with you very, very soon.
Anytime.
Thanks, Nigel.
Bye.
Cheers.